my sister, so I can say that.
What?
We're giving a tutorial on mute buttons.
Oh, I should put it on when Steve asks me a question.
Do me a favor and
Put it on all the
try
time.
again. She says she didn't get it.
All right, where is this stupid agenda? Did you email it to me?
No, not yet. Give me a sec.
Brother Dearest, send me Gary. What are we hearing?
Mine came in the same email as the Zoom link.
Oh, okay. Let me go look at that.
It's a file at the bottom of that email.
Okay, I will go back to that.
I just sent you a text with it. So just open your phone and click on that. It'll be open.
Okay, got it. Perfect. I was trying to do it, 2 devices. Okay, that's nice. However, too small.
Brenda is going to be the co-pilot on directing taking care of the technical stuff for us. Thank you, Brenda.
Okay.
Holy mackerel, we're on 2 screens. Let's see. I'm impressed.
Okay. Let's, as they say, let her rip. So I want to welcome everybody. So greetings from the Aflac office downtown and my horrible backdrop. I want to welcome everybody. I have been on 16 virtual meetings since yesterday.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Poor thing.
And I turned down 3 other ones, but this was the only one today that I really looked forward to be quite transparent, including the one that was our Wine Down Wednesday that I just came off of, where I'm at work and can't have wine. So why did I want to be there? But I just want to welcome everybody. We are in our virtual, I refuse to call it the new normal, it's just where we are. But it's great that on the positive, you didn't have to worry about gas, you didn't have to drive, there was no parking issues, it's fabulous. So I want to kick this off. Caroline Lehman is going from the advisory committee, will kind of also be chatting, but I just want to kind of do a quick welcome of who's in the room. So cab members, wave your hand. That would be you waving. All of our warm liners, we'll shout out to you, wave your hand. Yay, Terry.
Yay, Melinda.
Yay, Melinda, wherever you are. Oh, you're that phone number, yeah. Hello, waving at your phone. Our BGHP volunteers, wave. That would be us waving. Our staff, waving at you. Members of the board, I know we've got a good group. We've got Terry, Nancy, Heidi, Jackie, Glenn, Ann, our newest member, which we're super excited about. And look at her, she was like first on, like, the newbie. And then myself, that's fabulous. We have Julie Onomas, who is our founder, who's on here. And then everybody else who's just here. So it's great to see you. And then I'll shut up and turn it on to something much more interesting.
Thank you, Gary. My job is to tell you why we're doing this now, having this CAB meeting at this point in time. Maybe a month ago that Rose and I were talking about the potential financial futures of the world and of our country and of our community, and how that all might affect the project.
Oh, what was that?
Oh, I'm sorry, that is, I need to turn this off. Okay. And what that did was bring us back to 2008. Some of you were at the Breast Health Project at that time, but the country was facing a difficult financial earthquake than we are today, and neither of us saw the recession coming. At the time, I was board president and Rose was the vice president. And we sat on my kitchen porch and we tried to imagine what was gonna happen. Tried to get our head around it. We were concerned. And so we went to Jane Wickelman, who was our treasurer at the time, and went into the project's finances in detail. We were relatively financial novices at the time, but it quickly became clear that with the loss of several grants and the uncertainty about future giving, we were on really shaky ground. Then Jean punched the numbers. If all of our fundraising failed, we had only 6 weeks of operating expenses left in the bank. We called an emergency board meeting, and quickly the board made painful decisions, and they were painful. But they ultimately kept the project afloat without interruption to client services. And I just want to say here that Sue Ann Armstrong stepped in when we lost our ED, and she volunteered as ED until eventually Rose said yes to the job. Afterwards, when we were able to project a solid, slimmed down version of our future and filled the cab in, the response of the cab was, "Why didn't you tell us? We could have helped you." So here we are. We're telling you. We are in shaky financial times again, but and the whole world is. But fortunately, due to Rose's good leadership, we are not on the edge of a financial cliff like we were the last time. But we want to face this one together with the CAB and the staff and the board, and keep you all informed about the impact of the current crisis on the project and on our clients and on our financial health. That's what we're doing tonight. We want your questions. We want your ideas and your courage and your help. Thank you for showing up.
Thank you, Carolyn. There were some, that was, sorry, did I interrupt you?
No, I'm done.
Okay.
Pass.
So there's some Zoom related stuff because not everybody is knowledgeable about Zoom. So I thought I might just do a little orientation to things. We were thinking that we would put everybody on mute. And it's actually worked really well in support group because people's voices can easily noises in a room can easily override people speaking. So if you guys each have control of your mute buttons on your computer, it looks like most people have figured out where that is. And it looks like most people have figured out where their video is too. So we don't need to go over that. We might still have some more people joining by phone who weren't able to join by video. Let's see. And one thing that's kind of cool on your Zoom screens is somewhere on your control panels, each device is a little bit different. There is an icon that says participants under it. So if you click participants, it'll show somewhere on your screen a list of who's on the call. And then if you click the word chat next to it, it will display chat. And that gives a way for you to communicate with the rest of the people on the Zoom call. Like if you have a question, if you have a comment, you can type it into the chat. So that way, even if you're muted, you can still have a voice in the call. If you, on each of our Zoom screens, we can control which view we're seeing. Like right now, I love gallery view because it's like Hollywood Squares where I can see you all. But when we start having individual speakers, you might want to shift it to speaker view so you can see who's speaking up closely. So that's a control that you have on your screen. And sometimes video might freeze or get kind of wonky, and the same thing with the audio. That's just the internet, and there's nothing we can do about it. Unfortunately, that's a Zoom thing. Did I forget anything, people who are more experienced with Zoom?
I think that's it. And I think the chat feature is a great, because normally we'd raise our hand and we would say, hey, Rose, I've got a question. If you really leverage the chat, you can put it, if you click, it'll default to everyone. So that'll go to all 28 of us. But if I want to send a note just to Nancy Dean, I can go over to Nancy and just click private and send a note to her. So you can kind of do that. So we can kind of still mingle if you want to, which is nice. But then also, as we're putting out, because to Rose's point and to Caroline's point, the reason we're here is obviously we do this every year, but it's also to get those ideas and suggestions. And the chat feature, we can actually save that. So it's something that can be archived, so we don't have to frantically take notes and all that stuff. And then we can leverage that and look back at that tomorrow, next week, next month, or our next board meeting or at finance and say, hey, here was an idea, let's learn more about that or what have you. So just, I would encourage everybody to use that, and you'll see it'll grow as the conversation goes. But just enjoy, and then I think Rose has us all on mute, which is great. So if you need to do something, you can just do that just by clicking mute.
All right, okay, good. Okay, so that was any questions? We could like wave at me and we can unmute you, or you can type in the chat.
Yeah, and on Zoom, the thumbs up is the most popular symbol on the planet. So it's the all good, we got it, we love it. And it's just encouragement too, which is kind of nice.
Mm-hmm. And that on my Zoom screen, there's a thing that says reactions. If you click reactions, the thumbs up is one of the options under reactions. Ugh, so much to learn with Zoom. All right, so let's turn this over to Mary. And the CAB members asked, what is it like to be a person with a cancer concern or newly diagnosed cancer patient in our area?
Okay, I'm on, right? Okay. Well, I'll do my best. I just want to say right off the top that what I'm going to share with you is just what I've heard. Sometimes I've heard it directly from some clients or other community members. Sometimes I've heard it via warm liners and staff. And I see Dr. Animas here, who's working hard in healthcare, which I am not. And so apologies if I either don't represent what any, plus I suspect some of you maybe have had medical appointments and medical care in the last 2.5 months. So I may not represent your experience or what you know to be true. I'll just do the best I can. First of all, what is it like? It's terrifying, and it's pretty scary to have a reason to contact us in the first place. Whether you have a diagnosis or whether you have a concern, you're already really typically quite alarmed, quite frightened. And in this time, everything's just cranked up a few multiples. I will say, I had the opportunity last week to take an online training course so I could be standby contact tracer for our county. And I know some people working there, and I'm, sort of following and in touch with them. I'm Anonymous is as well, and some of you. I have so much confidence in our county public health department. I'm really extremely proud of them. I know that they are working their butts off, but so far not overwhelmed, because I'm on standby and haven't called me yet. So every person with a positive test gets a case investigation, gets contact traced. Every person who that could be identified that touched with that person during the vulnerable window has been contacted and requested to quarantine. So even though we have a bigger number of cases in our county than any of us wish we did, I feel like the chance of any one person that you might encounter being positive and contagious is extremely small. Nonetheless, I'm happy that many of us are being super cautious. And to the point, it doesn't take long that sort of this has become our way now. The first time I went to Costco, which now was quite a while ago, I was just practically shaking. It's like, oh, don't touch the wrong thing. Uh-oh, somebody's coming toward me. Veer left, and keep your mask on, and where's those wipes? And oh, I wanted this, but forget it. I got to get out of here. And so I think a lot of us have gotten used to just either staying at home or doing things in the safe way. And I've heard a couple anecdotes about people who either kind of just on impulse went off of that, or something that they couldn't control, and they found themselves sort of close to somebody without masks. And particularly if you are a cancer patient, that was just terrifying. It's really magnified over what the rational real risk is, because I think we're just being so careful. So there's a flip side to the fact that most of us are really have, I think, quite laudatory behavior. But okay, I'm going to move on to what I've heard about the experience of care. And basically, it's almost all really good news. Patients locally are getting the cancer care that they need. I have heard a couple anecdotes about clients of ours who had a few delays in getting getting to a diagnosis. So maybe they had a symptom or a concern. They maybe needed primary care or some other specialist to sort of get to the point of being in the cancer program. And everybody's impacted, especially in the first part of this, with primary care operating differently and everything either on hold or slowed down and nobody really quite knowing. So we heard from a few clients who were really struggling there. I don't think any of that's particularly recent. I will say I haven't heard any similar stories once somebody gets a diagnosis. Has their biopsy is usually the way that happens. I want to tell you what some of you maybe haven't heard yet of a process that's been going on for a few months in the cancer program at St. Joe's. And that is that every single referral to medical oncology now is being triaged pretty much right off the electronic fax usually by Dr. Mahoney and Dr. Khan. He's the director of medical oncology now. And so usually within 24 hours of them finding out, oh, we have a new cancer patient being referred to the program here, they've looked at all the materials that came with the referral, and they have decided what's the most efficient, expeditious path for that client. Excuse me. So, for instance, if they think this person needs to have a PET scan or an MRI or an ultrasound before they see ABC specialist, they can get that in the works. Or this person really just needs to go to the surgeon first. They get that underway. I think from what I can observe, that this has resulted in people getting to the person they need to get to much faster. And because they do this right away, and because the whole team is used to this process now, they get on a med-onc schedule, if that's the next step, within days, which is the best thing you can do for this client's peace of mind. The best thing is just help them get, not too fast, but help them get to where they need to go in the process. So that's wonderful. And then once they have seen one or more of the doctors that are going to be on their team, they have they may be brought to tumor board. Tumor board is as vibrant and active as ever. It is virtual and has been since mid-March. They're using Microsoft Teams, and I've been able to log on most weeks. Particularly, I get the agenda sent to me. It's very confidential. You put in all the secret codes, and you can see if there's any breast or GYN cases. And I really try to sit in and listen. And we always tell our clients that if your case is brought to tumor board, it's like you had a whole bunch of second opinions for free, and they really benefit from that very collaborative recommendation for care. They always make sure there's a format. Yes, are we following national guidelines? Yes, did we remember to, are there any psychosocial issues with this person? Do they need any extra support? Are they a candidate for a clinical trial, et cetera? It's really rigorous, and it helps make sure that every client that goes through that tumor board process gets top-notch care. And it's much better than one overworked doctor who might just forget one of those little areas. So I have to say, pleased to say that that's working as well or better than ever. We've heard that, of course, a lot of visits are via telehealth now, and that could be with primary care or with one of your cancer doctors or any of your specialists. And this is one of the things that doesn't all need to go back to the old way when we move out of this. It's much more efficient, and certainly plenty of visits can happen over a screen like this. When there is an in-person visit, we've heard from our clients that they will call or text from the parking lot and say, okay, I'm here for my appointment, and they're told to wait in their car, and then they're messaged again when it's time for their appointment. Okay, come on in now, make sure you have your mask on. And the goal is really to keep the waiting room as empty as possible, and to reduce the number of places and people that any person has to be around on their way to an appointment. We've even heard from some people that having a blood draw happens with their arm extended through the window of their car. Masks all around, and they never leave their car. So again, I don't know if this is the only way. These are some of the ways and some of the stories that that we've heard. Obviously, even with all of our care operating as well as ever, there are still clients who go out of the area because they have very complicated scenarios, unusual pathology, or they just want another opinion. And we have heard from multiple clients going to, say, UCSF or Stanford, that they've been also very pleased and very reassured. They feel safe and well cared for with the processes in place in those places. One other thing I heard, surgeries, at first there was some delay, I'm sure in the cases that were early stage, small, where a few weeks doesn't really change the outcome. I think that's all gone now, and we know that even most elective surgeries are happening again. Things have sort of opened up medically. I have heard that if someone's going to have surgery, that they have to have a COVID test within 5 days of surgery and then quarantine at home until it's the day of surgery. So the hospital is, up on their procedures, and I feel it's as safe a place as can be. Certainly, no cases have happened from exposure in the hospital or a medical visit. We do know from public health how all our cases have happened, except for, I think, 17 out of 98 were called community spread. That means we couldn't find a direct contact, but the majority of them were had contact with the case. That's all my notes, and sort of random hopping around. That's what I've heard. I feel like this was a big gossip session. I heard this. And, you know, Madeline and Brenda are going to tell you more how the project is helping these clients in this scary time. You can chat me questions if you want. Or shout them out now. I don't know. You can unmute or not. Okay, Glenn. Got it. I'm on an iPad, so I have to swipe multiple times to be able to see everybody.
Looks like no questions, so let's turn it over to Madeline and Brenda.
Hello, everybody. So from the perspective of what Brenda and I are seeing, and we're going to kind of split this up, and I'll go first. As Mary talked about the whole COVID layer, that has been a big player here for all of our clients. And, you know, as Mary said, it's hard enough to negotiate a cancer diagnosis, which has its own fears and scary parts, but then you're going to put the COVID piece on top of it. So, you know, I think that we're doing that. We're really building an even greater layer of support, spending, I think all of us warm liners, and Brenda and I are probably spending more time on the phone, kind of reassuring and supporting our clients, because it is pretty scary. We all still have our caseload that we follow. And then of course we are always checking for new clients. And when the shelter in place order came out, we saw very few contacts or calls for about 4 to 6 weeks, like hardly anything. And now we're really starting to see that increase, I think, as people are feeling like it's okay to sort of focus on their cancer or that breast lump or whatever it is that they have. And so we're now starting to get more people who want or need support, new calls, and some new clients. We're really reinforcing to our clients, especially earlier on, not so much, we don't need to as much now, that it is safe to continue your cancer treatment, and to please don't delay it. That the hospital, as Mary said, they've got a lot of safety protocols in place to protect them. I know for at least radiation oncology that they're spacing their appointment times out so that they can sterilize in between clients, and they're having them wait in the car, and then they're coming out and getting them and things like that. So we're really reinforcing to them that, you know, it's still safe. In fact, it's, you know, you have a separate entrance. You're not going through the main part of the hospital. Each place has their own separate entrance. So we're really trying to encourage that you keep doing that and don't delay your treatment. The other thing that we're encouraging is if clients find something new, whether, you know, a new breast lump or having bleeding or something that's not normal and needs to be checked out, we're really encouraging them to, yes, it's okay to do that. And yes, you should do that. And yes, please call your provider if you have a clinic or a provider that you use, and please get evaluated and get seen, and that they are indeed open. And so start that process. Don't just wait. And if they don't have a provider, we do a lot of navigating for that, trying to help get them into places, trying to help figure out what kind of funding they can get, just all that stuff that we normally do. But it's really scary when we know that things are still happening out in the world, and it is a little bit of a concern that people are putting it off, and that it's going to get worse down the road, or they're going to have a more advanced case possibly down the road. So we're really trying to get out that word. The other thing we do a lot of is coaching our clients what language to use to get an appointment. And an example I have is one of my first clients that I got. She called and said, I need a mammogram. And it was like, oh, okay, well, let's talk about that and, you know, explore that a little bit. Do you just need a normal routine mammogram? Do you have a doctor? Well, it turns out after a somewhat lengthy discussion, she had a giant mass in her breast that was distorting it. She didn't have insurance, and she hadn't been to a medical provider for years, so she really didn't even have a provider at that point. And so it's just that thing of not saying, calling up and say, I need a mammogram, but actually saying what it really is. I have a breast lump. I'm scared. I want it evaluated. I need it looked at. And so to really help our clients use that language to also help them navigate, you know, a really complex medical system as far as how to get the schedule for their pet or for this imaging or that imaging, or what happens when nobody calls you back. We had one of our people in our GYN Gals group yesterday say, well, I'm having bleeding and no one's called me back. And, you know, and so kind of helping her navigate what that means. And, you know, yeah, you really do need to talk to somebody, at least talk to that provider and see if you can get in. So as we all know, there's a lot of little moving parts with any normal kind of diagnosis and in normal times. And then it's a little bit compounded now, it's a little more impacted now. And so just to kind of helping facilitate that. Even though we're not physically in the building most of the time, we still are available by phone. People call in, they leave a message. Brenda and I are checking messages very frequently, sometimes hourly, and then we will return a call to anybody just to help them, you know, help them get a timely, you know, whatever they need from us or what kind of navigation they need from us. We also have our really all-important medical records binder, which is just one of the most important tools, I think, with this. We still have that. We hand it out through the door with a gloved hand, or we leave it outside and they do a swing by and pick it up, or however it needs to be gotten to them, we do that. We try to get them that medical records binder. We're still dropping off socks. Hopefully you guys all know about, we have these wonderful socks that Volunteer makes. And so we wrap it up in this beautiful little present and we add this beautiful little card and we bring it to the hospital the night before surgery. When that client shows up for her surgery, she's got that little present on her bed waiting for her. And it's just kind of a nice way of, you know, helping ease that anxiety and with surgery and stuff. So that's all the things that I was going to cover. And I know Brenda's going to cover some more. Does anyone have any questions for me? Okay. Take it away, Brenda.
All right, well, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Nice to see everyone. And if you think of questions from Madeline as I talk, feel free to type them in here, or I'll leave some time here to for questions as well. And, you know, for Mary, Madeline, or I. So I'm regretting not wearing my glasses tonight because I can't hardly see. So if you see me going like this, it's because I'm trying to figure stuff out. So I don't know what I was thinking, but I wanted to talk a little bit more, elaborate a little bit more on what Madeline was just addressing in terms of how we're helping to continue as much as the same level of service as we have been able to provide when we're open during this difficult time. And I think we're doing a really great job at it. You know, like Madeline said, we are still offering all of the same resources that we always have, whether it's even delivering those items to those people, I don't see that we have not been able to do that. And in fact, one of our new clients, coincidentally, is in the UK, word of mouth from a previous a client of ours, and we were able to mail her socks and medical record binder, and she's getting really good support as well. And I'll get more into that, but I wanted to start with our warm liners and, give a shout out to them in terms of they have just, they're so incredibly devoted and impressive with what they do for the project all the time, no matter what. But they have just once again stepped up to the plate, risen to the occasion. They are calling their clients as usual, same number of contacts with them. They have been incredibly independent, the warm liners, in terms of keeping their same schedules and making sure those calls get done. Their follow through has been excellent. Madeline and I have split up the warm liners so that I touch base with certain ones on certain days and Madeline does on the other days. They've just been fantastic. So one of the things that we have talked about in terms of staff members is realizing that everybody's under a new level of stress. It's especially when all of this first started, it's scary. Like Mary was saying, tiptoeing through Costco and jumping out of the way when somebody comes near you. And it's pretty terrifying. And so our warm liners, in the way that they are supporting our clients, we realize they have also been under their own personal stress. And so we found it important that we need to really support our supporters with what they do for our clients. And so I think just making sure they know how much we appreciate them. And then we've also, our last 2 warm liner meetings really opened it up more to check in with them and keep it more flexible where they can connect and talk about how they're holding up with those sorts of things. We realize also that our warm liners, many of them, most of them are retired, and that coming to the project is part of their social activities and it's part of what they do in their community. It's a really important part of their lives. So just to acknowledge our gratitude towards them, that they are going above and beyond. I want to put that out there. I also know that we have had to provide additional support with our warm liners in terms of making sure they know the resources that are out there and helping them with the patients who maybe are having a little more difficulty navigating some of the barriers that they're faced with because of COVID, and trying to help problem solve or for the patients. Because again, whether it's that the patient has been upset because their surgery is being postponed, they're put on hormone blockers, making sure that patient is reassured, making sure that the warm liners know what's happening in terms of the safety being considered at the clinics and at the hospital, so they can reassure their clients that they're in good hands when they do go to their appointments, that they are safe. So I think Madeline and I have both felt that it's been, we've spent more time one-on-one with our warm liners than we previously have had to, because it has been like an extra level of care, extra depth that people, and that we are all spending more time talking to our clients on the telephone because they have additional worries. I think, I can't remember, maybe it was Lori or Melinda saying how they were told the client, well, things seem to be going well, and I think we'll probably call you as often. And the client was like, no, you can call me every week if you want, once all of this started. So I think people do want those connections. I wanted to also address somebody when Rose put it out there in terms of what they were hoping to hear from, had said when they first had come to the project that support groups were really important, and we were, the person who wrote this question, they were wondering what we have come up with to approach that level of intimacy and spontaneity in the Zoom era. I'm really pleased that the technology has been available. Our young women's group was able to be kind of the test group to see how it would work right away in March, and they all were willing to jump right on, and it's been delightful, I have to say. And so much so, there's been such great attendance with the young women's group One of our support groups, we had 11 people, which is probably more than we've ever had, even in person. But because of that, we have added 2 more support groups per month. So we're doing 1 each week or 4 times a month. So, and we're alternating the days and times, trying to make it more accommodating to our clients. And again, I think it has a lot to do with the fact that people, we've talked about in support group, that this is very triggering. The COVID thing has been, you know, it's upsetting. They are dealing with this cancer, and now all of this comes back around, the uncertainty and that unknown, and am I more vulnerable because of my history or because of that I'm going to treatment now? It's been a scary thing. And so sensing that with our clients is what has made us feel that we really needed to be able to offer this to our support groups. So in that vein, we have now been able to meet that with all of our groups. We have the regular breast cancer group has resumed twice a month. The GYN Gals has resumed twice a month. The L&L group that is hosted typically at the Breast Health Project by Carolyn and Amanda, they're doing it on Zoom. And I think we are all delighted with, I mean, we all know how nice it is to see each other here. And you can imagine a support group, we all just want to grab each other and hug each other, but we're safe distance. And it's a highlight of my week when I get to see everyone. And it's just been lovely. So I can't say enough in terms of gratitude for Zoom, what this has done for us, because I don't know how so many of us would have gotten through without being able to at least see our people. So yeah, that has been, I think, personally, I don't know if other people would agree, but I think there's still been quite a bit of intimacy in those groups and a lot of understanding in that. And the benefit in a lot of ways, in my opinion, is it's showing me that we can always do this, whether we're meeting at the project in our support group room. If somebody is in the midst of chemo and doesn't feel like getting out of bed to come to group, we can pop them up on our screen and they're still part of our group. We can be more flexible with people attending, or if there's somebody down in Fortuna or doesn't want to drive all the way up, they still can participate. So it's a good reminder to us that sometimes we just have to think out of the box to be able to accommodate people above and beyond what we're used to doing. And then with that as well, I know for our young group, I have the privilege of facilitating, and I am able to do that with Carrie Furtado now, who is just an awesome facilitator as well. I'm so grateful for you, Carrie. And she is it's great to have a co-facilitator, because Carrie is, whenever somebody asks a question, she like quick types it up, and next thing I know, she's shooting it off, you know, in our other group chat that we have going that I will talk about in a second. But it's just been really nice to have that level of support as well. We also have, right before all this started, we really got our WhatsApp group off the ground. And that's what I'm talking about, is our kind of online chat group that we have. And we've been using it for our young women's group. And that's really become a peer support group solely. Nobody really facilitates it, but Carrie and I try to participate, you know, if there's questions, or to add links and those kinds of resources for people when things come up. But those ladies are really active on that in terms of reaching out to each other or asking people different questions. You know, I'm worried about starting tamoxifen. When should I start? And, you know, just all these different questions that they go back and forth with. It's really been a great way for them to kind of buddy up and support each other when we're not meeting for our support groups. So that's a nice other resource that we've really taken advantage of during this period of time. And then lastly, I guess I'll just kind of throw in there, Madeline had asked me in terms of the resources the Breast and GYN Health Project offers. We still do have our library, and of course that our library database is online. We use LibraryThing. It's online searchable, and so whether we, you know, let people go in there and search things, we haven't done that up to this point, but we can do that, or we can also do the search for them and then share them. So if they want information on complementary treatments during chemotherapy, we could do a search of what books we have in our library. We can send them the results of that search, and then they can say, oh, I'd like to check out this book and this book. And then we can check it out and either meet them somewhere, drop it off, or they can swing by the project and pick it up with the gloves out the door, hand out the door kind of thing. So I think it's really been working out quite well that we're able to provide pretty much all of our resources during this time. We also have talked about people who, if they want some sort of consultation with like Mary prior to an appointment, or if it's easier for a new client, if just the face-to-face, having a quick little chat, we can do that on Zoom as well to make that connection. So we're being creative with that, and I think that's all I had. I'll let Rose then go. I think you're up next, Rose, and talking about like our direction forward. I know we're just taking things kind of one day at a time at this point, but so far I think we've been able to do a pretty good job. If I can say that myself, I guess. So thanks for everybody for being here. Like I said, it's really heartwarming to see everyone.
I would like to also add that Rose has been our IT troubleshooter extraordinaire for our Zoom groups. So thank you, Rose. She's been on the back half, desperately trying to help people connect into Zoom for support groups. So yay.
Thank you. I'm going to turn this over to Ms. Madeline.
Okay, I have the absolute honor and pleasure to introduce our two speakers. They're two incredibly wonderful women. Love them both so much. Karen Remke and Janet Beckstead. And thank you guys both so much for sharing your stories with us. We appreciate it so much. And Karen, I think you were going first. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's the way Rose wrote it up on the agenda. So,
okay.
Thank you, Rose, for inviting me to do this, because, as I think about wanting to get organized and what to share, boy, what a process of reflection. So it was 2 years ago in May, I retired and thought my big challenge was going to be how to adapt to living the retired life. And knew I had a breast lump. I had felt it, and I didn't think it was cancer. I was sure it wasn't cancer. I just thought, oh yeah, this is one of those little lipoma, fatty tumor, whatever it is. I'm sure that's what it is. So I just went about, okay, enjoying retired life for about 3 weeks. And then went and saw my primary physician, who did not agree with me that it was just, some harmless thing. And it took me still a month to get a mammogram. Not because I was dragging my feet, but just scheduling, is a thing. So that took a month, and then I also had an ultrasound around that time, and yes, there were some masses in my breast and my lymph nodes, and finally, that was in June. In July of that year, then I got a biopsy, and at the end of the biopsy, the doctor who did that was very thorough and very convinced that, yeah, this was a serious cancer. So I didn't get the results of that for about 2 weeks. And yes, that's what it was. And then I started learning all the terminology. So, my particular cancer cells were estrogen positive and HER2 positive, and aggressive, and all those words that they started throwing around. So I went pretty quickly and met with Ellen Mahoney, Dr. Mahoney, because I had worked with her. I had worked for 30 years as a medical social worker. It's not like I was new to healthcare. And I had worked with Ellen for quite a few years. And so I went and saw her, and she started explaining to me the process of, cancer and what my particular cancer cells look like, and said, yes, there's some follow-up PET scans would be good, and then tumor board. But she had a pretty good idea that what I would be facing is probably going to be starting with chemotherapy and then surgery and then radiation therapy and then the hormone blocker, the estrogen blocker, for however long, 5 years anyway. So, and that turned out to be the case. Ellen also talked to me about, the breast and GYN. That does not roll off my tongue easily. I tend to say breast health project, but I don't want to leave out the GYN, but sorry, I stumble over it. She suggested, why don't you contact that group? And over, the years of being a medical social worker, I knew that is a really good idea, Ellen. So that was kind of my first contact. And when I first met Brenda, and just, yes, that first impression of coming into the house and meeting these wonderful people, and no pressure. I really felt like everybody understood. I was totally overwhelmed, and this was all new, and I hadn't even started treatment yet. It only got even more overwhelming. But just the support, just that gentle acceptance, yep, we're here, was very reassuring. And I went to a support group at that time, but it was too soon. That wasn't what I needed right at that moment. I just needed to get things started. So in September, Dr. Cobb put in a port, and because we knew I was going to be getting chemo. So, okay, that was good. That was another time I came back. I think I talked mostly to Mary at that point, because I get this port in, and boy, it hurt. And I had a lot of pain. And I realized I just didn't even know what was normal at that point. And so Mary and Brenda were really helpful at that time to just say, okay, well, here's some of what, people have said, here's some of the experiences, and just, sharing that experience was such a great support to me, because everything, of course, was my experience, the way I was going to go through it. But probably someplace out there is somebody else who had a similar experience. And yeah, there was just that input that I just felt like that was the big question for me that came up a lot. Is this normal? Yeah, because I just didn't know. I was really overwhelmed. So in October of that year, I started chemotherapy, and I was set up for six rounds. So every 3 weeks, go and get your infusion. 4 different drugs. 2 of them were the old-fashioned chemo. 2 of them were more the targeted drugs. And that, boy, you get this list of, well, here's some possible side effects, and it's about 1.5 miles long, and that's for each and every one of the drugs that you're getting. And then you just start getting the drugs and find out how it's actually going to be. And I had a really hard time. And every time got worse and worse. And after the third infusion, I was so sick, and I kept trying to figure out what is causing this and what to do about it. So I said to the oncologist, okay, I don't want this one of the four. Let's drop this one. I think that's probably the culprit. I get my fourth infusion and everything got worse. That was in December of that year. And I just realized if I was going to continue on with this, that I was going to die. It was so awful, too much. So I told them, I'm not going to do this anymore. No more chemo. Oh, and yeah, medical oncology. Over the course of this time, I've had either 7 or 8 different doctors. I can't keep track of them. I've forgotten most of their names. And, so I'm going through all my experiences. And just within that first few months of chemo, I had 4 or 5 different doctors. It felt like every time, they're rotating or I'm seeing somebody different. It was very hard to establish a relationship and good communication. And so when I told that particular oncologist, I cannot do this anymore. I can't. He just kind of tossed up his hands. Okay. Fortunately for me, in January, so like the next month, I just kind of crawled home and said, I just have to try and recover from this. And in January, I was feeling a little better. And I had a genetic test done because there's a lot of cancer in my family. And I met with the genetic counselor, Kate Mott, who worked out of Santa Rosa, St. Joe's. And she happened to be up in town and said, let's meet here in Eureka. So there's no way I could have left town anyway. So that was great. I got to meet with her and she gave me wonderful information, helped explain what that first test said was that I was BRCA1 positive. I had that mutation. And she explained that, but she also was very concerned about the fact that I had stopped chemo. And not long after that, called and talked to me some more. And from talking to her, I decided I was going to give one drug one more try, one more infusion, and that was Herceptin, which is one of the targeted drugs. And so I called up oncology and talked to another medical oncologist who said, okay, we can do that. And in February, then I started getting infusions again of Herceptin. And it turned out that I could handle. And I went on for a year, completed a year of the Herceptin infusions. And I really bless and thank Kate Mott for that, because she helped in a number of ways. So she helped get me back on Herceptin, and she helped me, she really encouraged me to talk to my daughter and my sister in particular about getting genetic testing. So just over the course of some months then, they or both, tested, they're clear negative. They have no genetic mutations along those lines. But my daughter's down in Walnut Creek, and her genetic counselor said, your mom's test only tested for BRCA1 and 2, and is a company that we don't really know about or use that much. Do you think your mom would do this again? So my daughter asked. I said, yeah. So I have a second test for BRCA, and it came back negative. So then I'm really confused, and ended up getting a third test for a larger, it was like over 30 different markers, and turns out, nope, I don't have BRCA, but I do have an ATM mutation. And that is still to be followed up on. But another thing that was happening along in here, like I said, I met with Ellen, and I figured Ellen would be my main person to help me make my way through this treatment. And I think she thought that too. But unfortunately, she became very ill and she wasn't practicing there for months as she tried to survive her own illnesses. And it was another time that just being in touch with the women at the project, that was my consistency. You all were my, and are my, consistent source of information and support and guidance. And I just can't tell you how important that is. Like I said, you know, a dozen medical oncologists later, you know, I have no attachment to any of them. Ellen's back in practice, but she was gone for the majority of it. I ended up going down to Santa Rosa in April for my surgery. I had a mastectomy and went down there to do that. And I was very happy with the surgeon down there, but that's Santa Rosa. You know, that's quite a ways away. And I come home and again, I had lots of issues with drains. They also took out, she took out some, at least one lymph node, maybe more, but I think it was only one. But they're just, I went then into a couple of months of trying to heal up from that surgery. Many drains, many drainage. Yeah, that was just one more thing that you get to learn about going through treatment. And I had to wait to heal from that until I could start radiation. So I finally did that last in that July. And July and August were radiation treatments, 5 days a week, healed up from that. In October, I had my last infusion of Herceptin and just said to everyone, break time. I'm going to pretend that I'm not part of the medical world at all. I just want to go enjoy the holidays, because the year before I had totally missed them. So that's what I did. I baked Christmas cookies every day for 2 months. I decorated, I did everything I could to just enjoy and just set everything else aside. And then in January, kind of got back into it and met with a doctor who, Amy Shaw, who's down in Santa Rosa, whose specialty is called survivorship, because I don't know if I'm getting this point across, but everything is so flipping confusing and overwhelming and piecemeal. And so Amy Shaw is like the person who says, okay, so here's what to expect and how often you'd have this test or see this person, or turns out I was supposed to, like I was overdue for a follow-up mammogram. I didn't know. I don't even know who was supposed to tell me that. So it's very hard to keep all those pieces, well, to just know what's going to come next. So at this point, I'm still taking little pills every day to block my estrogen. They, of course, are having the effect of thinning out my bones. So I just started a drug called Reclast. I get an IV now every 6 months that should help with that. I can say from our social isolation time, I've had a phone visit with one of the Dr. Hardy, medical oncologist. So we had a visit by phone. I've never met him in person, but that's how we did that check-in. I did go in to get my IV at oncology, and I gotta say, there was probably a dozen people in the waiting room. So, you know, with our masks on, but there was a dozen people there. We were not waiting outside in our cars. This was 3 weeks ago. And the rooms, the 2 rooms where you get your infusions were full. I actually felt like I was getting off easy because I get 1 drug and it takes like the total of an hour and I'm in and out of there. And I know from previous experience, there are people having to spend their day there. And I just, kind of, my heart went out to them thinking, geez, you could be in the middle of being really, really sick and the world is crazy right now. So what a hard time for them. But the consistency of the support I've gotten from this group has been amazing. Just the chance to say, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's normal anymore. Help me figure this out. And everybody's so supportive. I came back to the support group. I love the support group. And tomorrow I'm going to try my first time of Zooming into support group. I love the writers group. That I've missed that, but that has been a huge help too. That's like a focused, a topic that we write about that just explores things all over the map of this crazy experience of, yeah, having cancer. The library has been a big help at times. When I was losing all my hair, I looked at books of, oh, these gorgeous women who have all this makeup on and they're bald and they're beautiful. And that was not my experience whatsoever. But I got pretty good with wrapping up scarves around my head. So that was good. The supply closet, just the turbans and the different, you know, okay, you've had a mastectomy, here's, you know, kind of a crocheted fake breast, you know, see, just if you want to see what that's like, just all the possibilities. It's like a whole new world. And the binders have been so helpful. They really kept me organized so I could go back and look today and yesterday and say, oh, I have all this information still in these binders, all the notes I took, and they're so helpful. And my volunteer, my warm liner volunteer is Margie, and I love her. And she calls me faithfully. We don't always talk every week, but she's always there. And I love talking to her. I love sharing this with her. And she's been great. So yeah, that's a whole bunch of how this 2 years has been kind of crazy. And yeah, instead of being retired, it was how to survive cancer and how to survive cancer treatment, which was, yeah, a challenge. So that's my story in a big nutshell.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you so much. It's hard to speak. It's hard to do public speaking. Thank you. And now we have another client who I also love, and this is Janet Beckstead, and Janet's going to share her story with us.
Hi, everyone. I am in the mountains, and so I apologize if I freeze. So hopefully you can hear my words. My picture might look a little weird, but anyway, hopefully you can hear my words. Thanks, Karen. I really enjoyed listening to your story. Mine kind of began with the retirement thing. I retired in June of 2017. I was a music specialist at 2 elementary schools. And so a year later, I was getting ready for my annual visit to Southern California to visit my family. And I had what I thought was a parasite. I had one day of a very strange bowel movement, and I contacted my primary doctor. And so I was tested and I had a parasite. and this was just before going to my visit, and so she prescribed I don't know if it's an antibiotic. Anyway, come hell or high water, I was going to go on my trip. So anyway, I started taking the pill, went on my trip, and I was getting this bloated feeling. My abdomen was just, you know, kind of feeling like it was filling up, and I attributed it to the parasite. And I contacted my doctor, and I say, you know, I'm taking probiotics and all this stuff, but you know, it's my abdomen is just, it's weird. Anyway, so to make a long story short, when I came home, my ankles were swollen, and I didn't look, but then I was on a plane, and when I came up, my knees were swollen. I told my sister before I left, there's something wrong with me. And so my daughter, who's a nurse at St. Joseph Hospital in the PCU, she says, well, do you want to go to the emergency room now or in the morning? So we went in the morning, and went there, and they took 9 pounds of fluid out of my abdomen. And I was diagnosed as having cancer. They, what is the, not ovarian at first, peritoneal. Well, they really, you know, there was malignancy in the fluid. And anyway, so I went to see my primary doctor the next day, Connie Bosch, and she said that she would like for me to either to go to Stanford or UCSF. She liked the surgeon Cato Hanlon, who is down in Redwood Valley, I guess. Anyway, so she put out, I guess, referrals to both. And a week later, San Francisco had called, and I made an appointment, but then I thought, well, it was going to be in September. Okay, so this was July. I was diagnosed July 10th. And so what it was going to be September. And I'm just going, that's a long distance away, or not distance, but time away. My daughter said, you know, that's a long time away. So anyway, we decided we were going to go down to Stanford emergency room and just show up. And on our way, we were in the parking lot at Safeway. Connie called, and she said she had heard from Cato Hanlon, and Cato Hanlon said that she was going to go ahead and take me, and she recommended me having a cycle before I had surgery. So anyway, so I got into St. Joseph, but Connie said before I had chemo started, she would like for me to have an ultrasound or transvaginal, you know, to find out where it was and how big it was. St. Joseph Hospital couldn't get me in till the middle of August to have a transvaginal ultrasound. And so that was unacceptable. And so she said, well, we're going to go and I will to Santa Rosa. So anyway, I went to Santa Rosa, and I had my transvaginal and the ultrasound. So that was great. And then I started my first cycle. And mine wasn't the same as Karen's. I mean, there's all sorts of different kinds of combinations, but mine was two, and now I don't know why I'm blanking out, but I have 2, and then I have 1 and 1, and that's every week. And so it goes 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1. So I had one of those cycles. That would be a cycle. And then I waited about, I think it was about 2 weeks, a month before I could have surgery, because they wanted to make sure that, you know, my blood count the white blood cells and everything like that were okay. So anyway, I went down to Fresno, had my surgery, and my surgery was on August 30th. So I was diagnosed on July 10th, and I had my surgery on August 30th. And my stage 3A, I think 3A, something like 3A2 or something like that. Anyway, I had a laparoscopic. At first, she told me it was going to be a midline, and I woke up and no midline. So that was great. And I stayed one night in the hospital and came home the next day. And then I started, I think 2 weeks later, I started my cycles again. I decided that Cato Hanlon, wonderful surgeon, but she was only one person. And I needed to have a team. And so I decided to go to Stanford for my follow-up. And so I went to Stanford after I had all of my cycles. I'm trying to remember. No, I didn't. No, sorry. Go back a little bit. Anyway, I went down there, and so I had one before surgery, and so Cato Hanlon said that I should have 6 cycles, and Stanford said, well, you should probably have 6 after surgery. So I had a total of 7 cycles, and I finished my last year in January. So it's been about a year and a half since my last chemotherapy. And my CA 125 is 8. I'm doing great. So I feel very lucky. You know, for me, many, many blessings, but I have to say is that I first read about the breast GYN health. I mean, I knew that there was the breast GYN, so I thought, oh, that's just for people with breast cancer. So I was at St. Joseph and I saw a newsletter, the breast GYN newsletter. And I think it was an anniversary issue or something talking about the history of it. And so it talked about how it did add GYN at some point. And I went, oh, okay. And then at first I thought, oh, I don't want to go and hear a bunch of sad stories. and it made me scared. I was afraid, you know, that I was going to be upset by hearing stories that didn't have good endings. So then I had a dream, and I had a dream that it was an ancestor was handing me a bag of seeds, and in that bag of seeds, this one seed kind of morphed through the bag and turned into this kind of dragon vampire weirdo. And so I had a stick and I beat the hell out of it. And so I said, I'm cured. I can go to those meetings. So anyway, I just said, you know, I'm going to go. So I think I went there about maybe a couple weeks before my last chemotherapy. So I've been going there since last January. So about a year and five months that I've been going, and I just love it. The books, I am so glad, Brenda. Thank you for saying that about the books, because I have really missed coming and looking at the books, because that resource has been just wonderful. And so that and everybody, and then the Zoom is, you know, you just make do. You make do, and just by seeing people's faces, and we had our meeting yesterday, and it was so wonderful to be able to share, but also to support the people who were having challenges, and, it just makes you feel really good and not alone. And I am so glad. I mean, I have a counselor that I also see. I have some challenges. My caretaker for my husband, who had a stroke over 10 years ago, and he has aphasia, and he can't really talk very well. And so it's challenging. So anyway, but when I go and I'm with the girls, we're talking about, our girl stuff and the challenges of that. So it's really, really been so wonderful. And my only suggestion is that, maybe make the GYN bigger. I don't know. It's just so fun for us, And sorry, Karen. I mean, that's important too, but it's like it didn't compute in my head, that it was for me too, and my kind of cancer. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Janet. Thank you, Karen. You guys are awesome. These are two of my favorite women at the project, but I have a lot of favorite women at the project. So I want to thank the staff for talking, and thank you everybody for being on the line. I wanted to give a quick shout out to our community advisory board members who are monthly donors. Because people donate monthly, we don't send out thank yous to you every month because you said don't waste your resources. So I often feel like we're not thanking you enough, and I want to use because we only have 30 people who donate monthly, and half of them are on our community advisory board or a board of directors. So thank you for your monthly donations. You are like gold to us. So part of my job tonight is to talk a little bit about what's going on with the project right now, and as we look into the future. It's I like to storytell about the past, but Carolyn kind of has given you guys an idea about what happened 12 years ago when we only had 6 weeks of revenue, and we ended up having to cut the budget from 400,000 to under 200,000 over the course of 2 years. It was really painful, and since then we've built the budget back up to 400,000 again this year, and again this catastrophic situation is happening with the whole world. We're really lucky right now. A couple of ways things are very different are that we're a much more mature organization, and our board of directors has a very solid finance committee that looks very carefully every single month at how the money comes in and out. Last time we were in transition with our executive director. I've been around 12 years and I don't plan on going anywhere. And also we've done a good job stewarding the hard-earned money of people who donate to the project. So when this, what is it called, shelter in place hit, we had 8.5 months of money stored up to cover operating expenses. So that is really good news. We are not at the edge of a cliff like we were 12 years ago. But we also know that events are already being canceled. California Cancer Crushers Wings for a Cure event, that was canceled, $14,000 gone. The Atalanta Walk and Run gone, $600. Probably all the sports activities that the high schools do in the fall, they won't be doing their fundraisers for us. So when we start looking at all of and all the businesses that have been hurt, we have been relying really heavily on businesses to be part of Sales for Survivors, to be sponsors, underwriters, donate items for the online auction. People are really hurting right now, and it's really likely that that our fundraising revenues are going to be hit pretty hard at the end of the year. So when we looked at how much money we might lose, it's probably about 33%, which is about $130,000 out of $400,000. So that's pretty serious. So that's partly why when I talked to Carolyn and said, we need to pull Cab in because Cab wants to know what's going on. So the board has actually been pretty proactive already. I see, oh good, I'm doing okay. So we have we have our monthly donors, and we have people who donate pretty big to the project, and I want to thank you so much. You are the foundation that keeps us going. In April, thanks to Gary's leadership, he was aware of what the Federal Payroll Protection Program loan really was. In my mind, nonprofits can't get loans because we can't pay them back, but this was a forgivable loan if we kept our staff in place at the same wages, same hours through June 30th. So we were able to get that loan the first time through. It was $54,000. When you add that to our 8.5 months that we did have, now we have 10.5 months of operating revenue in the bank to carry us into next year. But who knows how long this economic downturn is going to last. So, so the board right now we're in this little bubble where things are okay, but we are already talking about doing budget cuts. Before I go there though, I want to say we do have our fund at Humboldt Area Foundation that people have very generously donated to over the last, I would say 5 years or so. So that fund got up to, it started at $30,000 15 years ago. It got up to $136,000 earlier this year, and then the stock market tanked. So that account went down to a little over $100,000, and we know it'll go back up. But when we're talking about that 10.5 months of money in the bank, we're not talking about that Humboldt Area Foundation money. So that's money that we're not touching unless we absolutely have to. We've been able to apply for some special grants that are COVID related. And because we're an essential business, that's given us an opportunity to do a little bit, to apply for some other very small loans. We got a grant award last week from Coast Central Credit Union for $4,500. And that was for our client services, and all except for one tiny grant for $300. All of our grants that we have right now are to cover our client services work. And we're working with our funders to give us as much flexibility as possible to stay focused on our client services work. At the board meeting last week, the board authorized us to apply for another very special grant through Humboldt Area Foundation that's COVID related for nonprofits, and it has great terms. It has a 5-year payback period, so that grant would put more money in our bank account to give us a little bit more flexibility and give us a lot of time to pay it off. And we have begun to discuss budget cuts. In April, we did our first, I'm smiling, but I'm smiling because they were the easy cuts. $17,000 we looked at and said, we don't need that, we're cutting that out of the budget right now. Once we get past June, we're really gonna have to look really hard at staffing because that's where all of our, that's where most of our expenses are. And the staff, I let the staff know that that's an area that we're going to have to be looking at. So that's not going to be fun. But $130,000 loss in revenue is huge. So, and we have to keep the project going. On the positive side, the board has also started having strategic discussions about what are we going to do to keep money coming in. And the people who are experts at fundraising and nonprofits say you need to pay attention to your donors and to people who love you, who are your core supporters. You guys are our core supporters, and most of you have worked with me around our major donor campaign, and you know that there's a group of about 500 people who invest just about every year in the Breast and GYN Health Project. We need to keep those people informed and keep them close to us because they're going to keep us going. and then people that you guys know, who you're so passionate about it. And if you can recruit them to also fall in love with the project, you know, the grassroots will continue to grow and grow. So I'm not scared, I'm optimistic, and I think we're gonna go through some painful times, but we'll do it together. So I want there to be opportunity to talk about how our community advisory board can be involved in helping. I was thinking, so I don't know if you guys want to chat some ideas into the chat. I was, whether you want to do a follow-up call, maybe you can, Mary's, or maybe somebody would like to talk. I'm kind of rambling now, kind of rushed through all of that. So do you guys have questions, comments, ideas?
The chat feature is a good one for things like this, because we can all kind of follow along. So if you open it, you'll kind of have a separate conversation. But I think this is, you know, we have done a great deal of work around financial stability. Like you know, we all have when you're the chair, you have some kind of like, how are we gonna leave this in 2 years when I'm not the person that I join you guys, maybe. But it really is that, but it's also being, you know, thoughtful around that communication. And right now, the issue that we are in now is there's such uncertainty of, we don't even know when the hair salon that you go to is going to open, even though they could today. Like, you know, so there's all of that stuff. So with this, I think as I think this connectivity piece, there's something very powerful in that is unlike a lot of other places. So when you think of why you got involved, like, why did I get involved? Because Margaret, my sister, was involved, and that's what all I know. So, you know, so it's like, whatever that why is, we need to kind of remember that. And then also, you know, this is a path, this will move on. Some of that drop in the stock market picked up today, and it picked up yesterday. We don't know if it'll fall off a cliff again next month when the finances come out for the Q2 earnings for companies and whatnot, which are not going to be great. But we will kind of know where we are a little bit there. Right now, it's a lot of fact finding, I think. And it's looking at loans and looking what is the right one and where are we? Some of you may be wondering, like, why are they taking loans? Well, you can't get money this free. You know, 1% or 0 or 0.5%, it's just not heard of. So what my advice was, and I've said this to my clients, I've said this to my people I work with, to people on to the project, it feels better to have money in the bank than not to have money in the bank, because the money in the bank, you might not be able to get that down the road if things get weird. So, and the interest on this is literally nothing. So if we hold it for a year and don't use it, fantastic. You give it back. It costs you $200. So there's part of that. So if someone's kind of wondering, like, why are they doing that? There's a little bit of that reason. And then because it really doesn't cost us anything, you know, and we're not, you know, spending it on something. It's kind of it's a safety net, if you will. So I think there's a little bit of that, but also I would challenge, how do we, you know, on this call, there's tremendous years of tenure and knowledge of, oh, hey, remember when we did what? Or, hey, remember a couple years ago I did this, or at another organization we did that. Those are the things that are needed. So as you do that, I would challenge to, how do you bubble that up? And there's no, I mean, there are stupid ideas. I mean, let's be real. But there are really no stupid ideas, you know? There are ones that we might just go, not that one. But, you know, there's no idea, because it's like we haven't been here before, so we might as well try something new. And so, whether, and a Zoom at 7:38 at night is probably not our best thinking time, but send Rose a note, send me a note, send, Mary and Madeline as you're chatting with them. Talk to your warm liner as you're chatting with them. Give them those ideas. The information will get back to Rose and to the rest of us. And then we can then look at taking action on that. I think that communication is probably the most important thing that we can have, along with just the financial support. I would say around that. Rose, do you want to any other plea on that, or do you want me to kind of bring it home?
Oh, I had been thinking I want to send out a questionnaire to the CAB, and we had some ideas about ways CAB members could help. One of them is help us share your story, because each and every one of you has a wonderful story connected to the project, and we'd love to share that so it continues to get people involved. So I was going to send out a post-meeting survey out to everybody and ask you to send it back. I also am thinking it might be good to have, if people are interested, to have a follow-up CAB meeting, and maybe we can have it with our fundraising and some of the finance committee people. If people feel like having a little bit more follow-up than we're able to do tonight.
And that would be a great thing to add on to that and just respond back. And it might be, July could be a really good time for that, because then we'll get through this month of June is going to be incredibly uncertain. We don't know, frankly, we're all kind of on a freight train going to open land now. So, whatever that looks like. So as we do that, July might be a good time to be able to come back and regroup, see where we are. We'll have a halfway point, which is always nice because we'll be looking into the back end of the year, which also means we're looking into 2021, and have a little bit more certainty. So that would be a kind of cool thing. And I think it's important to keep you guys close and keep you informed and use you, frankly. I mean, you have knowledge. We need that knowledge.
Looks like Carolyn has a question. Carolyn,
Well, actually, I just wanted to say this to the CAB members, my fellow CAB members, is, we have been through really tough times, and we figured it out, and we gained a tremendous amount of knowledge in doing it, and built great, strong partnerships, and we will survive. We need everybody on board, but the work is good, and the project will continue. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for joining the call tonight. Nice to see everybody.
Cool. Well, at that, it's 7:41, so we're a little over. If you're okay, I'll bring it home. As some people know me, I wasn't quite done. So I definitely want to say thank you. Thank you for Margaret's laughing. Coming together in this time is really awesome, and it is super helpful for all of us. I mean, I haven't seen Maureen in a while, so I love that we get to see each other, even if we're on the Hollywood squares. So thank you. Karen and Janet, thank you. Thank you for talking. Our licensed, otherwise known as licensed user. I warned Ann, I said, you have to bring your Kleenex to this Zoom meeting. But you can click off camera and blow your nose. So it's always kind of good. It reminds us why we're here. It is, it's important. And you can't cry when you drink water. It's not physiologically impossible. So I'll just put that out there as a fun tip. And I would be remiss without kind of a call to action. So part of my first one, I said, was really that communication. That is the most essential thing that happens right now. But from this group, you are powerful, you have knowledge. So use that and bring it forward. The other thing I will say is, in 3 words, vacation raffle tickets. I'm on a bunch of boards and I'm on a bunch of committees, and I've canceled a lot of events. We did not have to cancel ours. We are blessed with the fact that ours can be virtual. We can have a virtual drawing. We can sell tickets virtually. We can use the phone. We can email. You can social media them. You can do what you've always done. But I think that is our biggest thing right now. I'm not sure of our current number. I know we broke 50,000 last year. Remember, we've done over 100. We absolutely are budgeted 82,000. Every dollar over that is golden. And that is part of that deficit that we are eyeballing. So I would just encourage you, if you sold your tickets, call Rose, pick up some more. And more importantly, we need more, as I say, butts in the seats. So we need more ticket sellers. That would make Maureen really, really happy. And it's needful, because not everybody is going to be out and about like we were last year selling tickets. But we can absolutely be creative with how we work the phones, do all those things, have virtual dinner parties, virtual wine parties, whatever, and talk about tickets. But I would challenge everybody to find a buddy. Find one buddy who is involved that you can influence or cajole and say, hey, I've got 2 things of tickets. Love you to sell them. You know why I love this project. So that would be that. That's my second thing. As things come out, there's a lot. Maureen and Rose have done an awesome job of getting our social media and the e-news just came out this week. Share that, email it out, get that out to other people. Everybody on the screen, it's like the Wella Balsam commercial. It shows how old I am. It's like, you send that, we duplicate ourselves. And that, think about, you could not only from a fundraising standpoint, but from somebody who could be touched, who didn't know we were here, to Janet's point, who didn't know that there was a GYN. That is important. So just share. Something which is weirdly phenomenal right now is that social media is blown up. Apart from cleaning spice closets, me painting my whole house in a weekend because I'm a weirdo, gardening excessively, going to Ace Hardware all the time, all those things that we're doing, eating a lot. We're also on social media all the time. On a Friday, it blows up. So if you see a posting that comes from the project that's doing something fun, share it. And if you're not on Facebook, go like us. We're the reason to be on Facebook. We're some good news. So, those are things that are very powerful, because you can sometimes think, hey, well, I'm just me. I'm in my house. I'm not supposed to be driving around. Share the heck out of that stuff. Because again, that could touch a person who didn't know about us, who needs us, and needs the people on this camera. So share and like, find a buddy, and just continue to be communicative. That's my ask. And thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great night, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Hi, Fry.
Hi.
I'm glad you made it on.
Yeah, it took a while, but eventually, yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'm glad I made it on too.